IVM.
This is Audio Gyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. Today we have Siddhesh Gautam with us on Audio Gyan, also known as Bakery Prasad on Instagram. He's a multidisciplinary artist, visual designer, researcher, educator, storyteller, Ambedkarite, surrealist, and postmodernist. His aesthetic reminds one of the magazines from like the older generations, bringing together contemporary politics in a minimalistic style. Welcome, Siddhesh. It's a real pleasure to have you on Audio Gan. Thanks for giving your time.
Thanks, Kedar, for having me here, and I'm looking forward to have a great conversation with you.
Awesome. And obviously, there are a number of articles documenting your background, inspiration, and a lot of work. So I thought I'll directly deep dive into a few of the things which I wanted to know personally from the time that I've started following your work. And yeah, I don't know whether the topic name should be called as Color of Freedom or Research or Rebel. Let's see how the conversation unfolds.
Yeah.
So the first thing which I wanted to start off is from an earlier interview which I was researching, and you said minimalism helps you find freedom. Right. So I just wanted to deep dive into that through your work, and if you can elaborate more on those lines, because the kind of colors you use in your style are sort of, it's blue dominant, but still it's a minimalistic palette. So if you can elaborate on what you meant exactly when you said minimalism is sort of freedom as well.
Yeah. So minimalism, as in the sense of an art style or a design movement or lifestyle or ideology. For me, minimalism is basically a process of reduction of chaos. And how I see the word is there is chaos everywhere. There is chaos in everything living, dead, or non-living. There is chaos in each and every detail of everything. So people say that the God resides in details, but all I see is more and more chaos in details. So for me, like I also have borrowed this concept of minimalism from Buddha. So how Buddha he implied he somehow talked about not just denouncing material desires. It's about not being dependent on them. And now these material desires for me are these details. So I do not want to be dependent on these many details. And then I layered it up with the Western ideology, especially, booming up in the 60s and the 70s, where, minimalism is coming up as a design movement and everything. So it got embedded, and, everything came up, with this whole package of, this is how I see minimalism, this in this chaotic world. I want to reduce the noises. I want to reduce the chaoses. I want to tell certain stories. I want to, express something. And if we see at this point of time, the attention span of people is very less. So, there is so much of data. There is so much of visual imagery from here and there. So many applications. It's everywhere. So, in this small time span, in this small attention span, if I, give them all these chaos, so maybe, what I really wanted to express would go in vain, or, would not be, not come out in the sense I wanted to. So somehow, to be, more open about, this is what I want. This is, this is the story. This is the subject. And, there is a bit of, a background about this. There are no, very ornamental flowers or wallpaper, on the walls or, different kind of lights or ceilings. No, I just want to, stress. I want to really use that small attention time span that people have to, just say, okay, this is the thing he wanted to say, and this is the thing he said. I'm not, taking you away by, putting up some ornamental things. Okay, I can make something more beautiful by, adding some ornamentation, but that would not be of any use because the attention span is so less and they're going to forget it anyways. So we are not creating masterpieces at this point of time. We are just trying to grab more and more attention of our viewers, of our audience, so that, okay, they can stop for, okay, 1 more second, maybe 2 more seconds. Earlier, people used to spend a lot of time, looking at works, and now people are very reactionary about things. If today is something happened today, you want, some to see something around it in just an hour, maybe in just 5 minutes. And somehow people are, so fast, they even are able to produce things. Maybe, I sometimes think that they are astrologers or something. They know, they have already made things, and something happens, and it's out there on Twitter or on Instagram. People are
Yeah.
very fast. So I think somehow, I find minimalism very helpful in this small attention time, in this small span of time, because nobody's really cared about details, or else they would have been spending more time in the
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I remember me interviewing Alisa Souza and also Appu Pen.
Yeah.
And both of them, at least I remember that conversation very vividly, because for Alicia, it was more of churning out more work. So she used to doodle a lot, and that's how she mastered or is trying to master that style of work. With Appu Pen also, it's about he's actually in a different genre
Yeah.
altogether. It's much more
Yeah.
abstract. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so why blue? I mean, yeah, I've read about it, but just wanted to document here. Is because of the Ambedkar angle? Is it because of the Buddha angle, or is it? I mean, blue also lends itself to freedom. So have you given some thought about it? Ki why such palette?
Blue has been sort of my favorite color in a sense, like in some way, but I was not using much of it, more outside. I used to think that black was my favorite color, but I would not, spend time in looking at things which are, black. So when I think about it now, because this question has been asked a lot of time, and I've gone into many levels of introspection, that where did this blue come from? Because you just do things, and things evolve and evolve and evolve, and certain characters are developed, some things are related to some people. So I always thought that this would have been the concept. But then when I think about my childhood, and I was mostly brought up in Uttarakhand, and the skies were all very clear and everything. So I used to spend a really lot of time in just looking at the sky. So I had this fascination. I did not even wanted to fly or become a pilot. I just liked to stare at the sky. I had no reason for that. I am not sure if I was dreaming about something big or anything. I was just mesmerized this sky. I always used to say things, even when I started in a design school, that blue is the color of the blue is something that you cannot make. The blue of the sky is something that you can never make. So it can never be made on paper or any material. So it is something. It is very it's impossible to make that blue. So there is this, I think I have this curiosity of exploring those blues. So I have seen a lot of blues. There is a maroonish blue, there is an orangish blue, there is a very gray blue. These days it's a very weird, very grayish, very weird blue, which looks like a dystopian world. But it has always been a very very interesting color, which has never been thought about that deeply. People see sky, but they just do not see the blue that it delivers at different times, with different specs here and there, things coming up. And inside the eyes, those dead proteins are revolving around, and they are also making something. So I think I was very very much mesmerized by that blue. And then slowly and steadily, also my school uniforms, most of the schools I have studied in were all blues. My favorite pen color was blue. When we had this choice of you can use black and other things, I was very skeptical about using black, because what I would do is I would, for the headings, I would use a thicker blue pen, and for the writing I would use a thinner blue pen. So in the blue only I'm you know uh,
Playing with
yeah. So I think
cool.
it has been there for a very long time. And then when Ambedkar also says that blue is the color which takes everything, which everything can be assimilated in blue. So I was like, oh damn, this is a very this is giving meaning to something I was just staring at, or wondering about, or just wasting time on. So actually somehow it started giving me meaning. And as I talked about minimalism, and how fast art and everything is going on. So also sometimes it is easier when we use a similar color, or we use a similar motif again and again, so it's easier for people to read it the next time if they're doing.
Yeah.
And I somehow knew that I'm going to stay here for a longer time, because there are a lot of stories that have to be told, there are a lot of things that have to be made. So I was like, okay, we can make some connecting dots that that can remain same, so that people are able to read it. So if you will see how I used to write, or how I used to draw before, and what I do now is now is becoming more simple and simple and simple. So the people who have joined me before have also gone through this part, that they understand sometimes I do not have to write. Earlier, for everything I have to write, for everything I have to explain. Now, if I'm writing about Savitri Mai, I will just write Savitri Mai. I'm not going to give reference that she was the first teacher and everything. So how I have grown, I have how those have grown with keeping certain visual aesthetics, certain visual pinpoints, same. And then so it's like a Netflix series or something like that, which is going on, which has connection. So I do not really want to break aesthetics, surprisingly, or giving surprise to people. Yeah.
And that's how you also define your language or style or artistic.
Yeah, that's Bakery
Yeah.
Prasad. And there
Yeah.
are so many Siddhesh. There are, other forms of Siddhesh. They can explore those other things. So, for Bakery Prasad is this thing, and let Bakery Prasad, grow that way. And, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But from what I understand is, and I was particularly intrigued by this, is that you mentioned about grays, right? And that's also quite interesting because an artist generally is in a conflict, and there I'm guessing there is an inherent conflict somewhere, right? And the an art sort of tries to reflect that. So, can you tell us about how have you arrived at a particular style of this minimalism? Because when you say that you are trying to remove stuff or trying to remove the noise and just trying to find a signal, as an artist, when you go deep into it, it almost can become very abstract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abstract to that extent that the audience may not even know what's going on, right? Unless they've followed you in detail.
Yeah.
So how do you how do you maintain that balance, or how do you arrive at that artwork or that illustration? I mean, especially I am in love with that cow Raj wala artwork. So it is there, it is still not there. It's making a statement. Yes, it's not probably offending. Can you just tell a bit about it?
Actually, like most of the people who go into arts, or who go into design or visual design, they start with doodling, and I too started with doodling. And I used to maintain these journals since childhood. So I was always drawing most of the things that I'm interested seeing, or interested to have. So drawing little things, and writing rhymes or these kiddish things. But I used to do those things, I used to maintain those journals. That was the only thread between me and arts. Otherwise, my parents wanted me to be good in studies, and studies are only physics, chemistry, maths, and all these English and everything. So this was not a subject. So so this was something I was doing because people have hobbies. Okay, this was my hobby. So it started as a hobby. But when I started to study design, I actually started to take these doodles way more seriously. And when those people who met me in those days, he used to call my work as Mehendi art, because I used to work in really, really, really detailed things. So I'm using those micron pens 005, and going deep. Sometimes I would actually require a magnifying glass to see that I'm doing very, very intricate drawings. And so that was how I actually began to present my work to the world. Before these, these journals are my private property. Not even my friends have seen this. But this time, these intricate drawings, which people are calling Mehendi art, some people are calling surreal art, some people are calling psychedelic art. I have no clue what kind of art this is, but I have just been producing. So I'm since people are appreciating it, so okay, this is the time to maybe bring it out and everything. Now my parents have no control over me. I'm in a college, so they can't say that this subject to study or this not to study. So here I'm okay to I can present my work, I can showcase it to people. And then and I used to make these very complicated things, because I had very complicated questions in my mind. I'm this young boy, who has first time who has come out, in a metropolitan city in Bombay, and before that we have only lived in very very small towns, and you're seeing different kind of people speaking in a different accent, behaving in a certain way. They already know where to go, what to eat, so many jargons and everything. So I had no clue about all these things. So that time I was so confused. So my all my conflicts were with myself, so it was very abstract. Now my work has moved from conflicts of myself to the conflicts outside. So now these conflicts of outside have to be understood. Since I have studied design, it is my duty to make things which people understand. So if my viewers are those who believe, who understand little things, I will make literals. I'll use, I can grow them, I can use metaphors, here and there, and I can grow them, with me. But if they're basically, if new people who are coming, who are very much, into literal things, this is the way, this is one of the stepping stones to learn, I think that's how I see it. So if they want to see something literal, I believe that it's okay to give them literal, because more than the art that I'm producing, it is the story that I'm trying to tell. So maybe you can forget my composition, or you might forget my whatever colors I've used, or whatever technique I was using, but at least you will remember certain names that that I've talked about, or or certain incidences that you were not aware of. So at least in that way I've played with your brain. So that's how ideologically I started making things more literal. I started making things more and then since it's past also, so putting up shadows and everything, it takes time. And then I felt that it is also part of chaos. I do not make shadows unless and until it is required, unless and until the shadow is going to say something. I'm not going to make that shadow. So I do not really, I'm not here to document a culture, or a community. I'm here to express stories. So I can do it in in any way possible. So this was the way that I found possible. Also this style has also uh, uh, I have arrived with it is because of I have been seeing similar kind of paintings in my childhood. So my grandfather, like his father actually went became a saint, became a Ravidasya saint when he was 5 years old, and his mother died very young. So he was kind of an orphan who was sustaining on his own. But his uncles, he helped him. He was a bright student, so they sent him school. He was the first person from our whole family to study, and then he went on to study, and studied science and everything, and whatever career that he made. But then every time, even though he had a big family, there were a lot of debts and everything, but every time he had a small amount of money, so what he would do is call a local painter and ask him to make his portrait with his father. So he would describe how his father would look like. So we have these series of paintings where he has last seen his father when he was 5. Now when he's when he's earning, he has all the 6 7 children. He's calling these artists, and who and asking them to make this human being whom they have never seen. And he's aging as he is aging in the painting. So he made sure that
Wow.
how this thing has to be done. And he has not studied any design or arts or anything. But I found the palettes of those painters very interesting, because those painters would use those kind of blues or those kind of reds. These are also the kind of blues and reds I use are very much from the graphic design of the boards that you see, of random tailors and other things. So that is also derived, because these were the same people who were making those ABC Tailor or something Gupta General Store and everything. And they are in the evening they are doing this, because they also want to do this, but they don't get the commercial projects to do that. So there are very cheap paintings. They're not expensive paintings. They were not expensive artists, but they had this kind of a aesthetic which I use. The kind of line, or the kind of the colors, the use of primary colors, because it is easy to produce. You do not have to mix many colors, and those people are hardcore making these graphic posters and boards and everything. So somehow my colors are also very primary colors which are available, colors which are not very new. It doesn't give you a sense that okay, this person has given a new color. No, I've just given you a color that you have been seeing again and again and again and again. So
very, very interesting. And the story of your father doing this is like amazing, amazing. But yeah, just to go further into the same question, is that what I can understand is that you are then like more of a storyteller than uh, trying to express, because then that expression at some point in time you will feel that the canvas is short, the medium is not equipped enough to make you express, but your intent then becomes very clear that you want to tell stories, and this is what I know, so this is what I'm expressing it through.
I'm expressing so that people can absorb. I'm not expressing just because I want to express. That is too artistic, that I cannot. The problem is I went to a design school, so I cannot think in that direction. That I can do, whatever my mind, tells me to do, and people will interpret it the way I do. Somehow in design, I got ruined, and I
somehow you got ruined in design.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Maybe like a fine artist, of course, would have probably given a different bakery prasad.
Maybe I would not have become that. Maybe I wasn't very much, happy with the way the design was going. So I became this something who was between, design and art. Maybe there also I would have been running behind design. Okay, that's more glamorous, that there's more money there. So you never know. We are very confused.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a short break here. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, moving on to the subject, I mean, like just moving on, maybe changing tracks a bit to the ideologies that you are sort of inclined towards. And it's clearly seen that you are inspired by Ambedkar, Phule, and so on and so forth. So I also wanted to draw a parallel that these people were more of social reformers than political figures, or I mean, they happened to do so, but no, not really, that was not their intentions. And also being, or maybe not be called as leftist as well. So but yet they stood for freedom, they stood for dissent, they stood for equality. And I somehow see that your paintings or your artworks are also not making a very bold extremist statements, right? Like, again, if you can just explain that, how has that, is that a reflection very conscious, or is it because of the political situation right now, or is it that you have so much into their philosophy that it automatically becomes a very thought-provoking yet not really offending art? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, the thing is that I think how I see that in India left is red, but left has been blue for a very long time. So the kind of question, if even if my work asks or caters to, is annihilation of caste, of equality. I talk about laws of rights of our tribal brothers and sisters. I talk about this UAPA charged political prisoners, the release of them, and and repealment of UAPA itself. I talk about land redistribution, and all this is leftist thought. It's just I have blue flag. If there is if anybody is going to ask me to pick up a flag other than the tricolor, it is going to be blue. It is never going to be any other color, because I see leftism in blue in India. I see more leftism in blue in India, because all these questions that I'm giving to you are way more important than the current government. The current government is not just a random evil from nowhere. It is an evil which has been brewed with time. It has been there for a very long time. From the subconscious, it has been brewed slowly and steadily, very shrewdly. And that's why we have this evil. We have this evil because we never even thought of considering these problems. Nobody, like, Kisan protest happened. I also, made so many posters. I was there at various borders. Gazipur border is near me, so I used to go very often at Gazipur border. But what happened was, like, I was very, I was very curious about, this thing, that after this is over, are they going to ask this question of land redistribution? Are these rich farmers sitting there, who have till now shown that, they are not just, poor farmers, they also have these, Lamborghinis, they also eat pizzas, and they have kids studying in Canada and other places. Are they going to talk about land redistribution now? So because they are talking about monopoly of Adani or Ambani, or some, businessmen, when are we going to talk about the monopoly of the rich farmers, which has been there for a very long time because of the family structure, or the caste structure, or the social structure that we have? So I think all the Ambedkarites are extreme leftists, but we are not heard that way. Because in India, leftism is very vague. For me, Marx is most misinterpreted in India. I think Marx would cry every day looking at the Indian people, how they read him. Because, when he talks about, a state which is religionless, and, he would not have imagined, how the communists of India, show this real, I do not know, hypocrisy about religion, when it, because it is all about vote. Marx is beyond vote. Marx is talking about a revolution. And here, it's not been like that. Like, if even if you take Ambedkar, so Baba Sahib have been going on the strikes with workers for a very long time. He has been associated with a lot of Marxist organizations as well. He was as leftist as possible. At that point of time, asking for Hindu code bill was the most extreme leftist, view possible. Or asking for a uniform civil code is the most extreme leftist thing possible. So I think they were the pioneer of leftism, in our country. Just their flag was blue. And the kind of changes they wanted, the kind of changes that we are demanding of, are still the same. We are still, maybe, we have a right to, drink water from all the places and everything. But still, we have not been able to, achieve that social democracy that they were talking about. We have achieved that political democracy. They are afraid because, the other person can put up SC/ST Act, or, there is a law that saves that person. But that person has not properly grown. Not everybody has grown in that way, that, that they democratize themselves socially, irrespective of the fear of the law. So I think that kind of a thought process, where, they wanted, like Marx wanted people to become like that. That's why he wanted, yeah, that was the whole philosophy of communism. How, it is for the people, it is by the people. Same thing was, is being asked by them. But in India, it is not, like communism. I think annihilation of caste is also not possible, because we are a very highly divided society. We have been playing divide and rule for centuries. And I think Britishers came and learned from us. All the people who ruled over us learned from us how to rule over us. We gave them the way. We had divided our societies. Who in the world, treats their own people like this? Imagine. Dogs and, other animals are around, are, allowed to drink from ponds, and some fellow human beings are not. Their skin color is not so different, their DNA is not so different. Why? Because they were born in certain caste. Like, how long can you go back and trace? Like, I see so many possibilities of fraud. Maybe there would have been a fraud in some back time, because of which, my ancestral grandfather, or, went into, some kind of a caste. There could be, India is a country of fraud. There could be many castes, could be, many families could have been, in that place because of a fraud. Because people said that, oh, no, from today you are a Bhangi, from today you are a Chamar. Okay, that they might have become. India has been democratic in evil ways for a very long time. That's why we have very common lynchings. Our Bollywood embraces lynching. One thief is running, and, he has just taken a small wallet in any random movie. The kind of beatings people give him for stealing one wallet, for how many 100 rupees, 500, 5,000, 20,000, 50,000 rupees in one wallet. For that, a person can be beaten down. There is no law. There is no God. All we all talk about religion, everything. There is no God in this country. Everything is opportunist. Everything can be repented, or I do not know what. There is no fear of anything. I think the only fear is of law here, because God doesn't work that way. At least in this subcontinent, at least I haven't seen God working in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I remembered a movie in that which is like at a positive note, that नाम दे दिया हरिजन, but वो हरि कब जाएगा, like हमको जन रहना है, just people रहना है, like it's quite interesting. But yeah, when you said all these things, I can clearly see there's a lot of backstory to it. How doesn't it translate into like overtly offending artworks? Like what goes in the process
I used to
between?
do that before. I used to do that before. I have made prominent political figures, doing silly things and being very, up to their face. But then I started to realize that, this is just giving them publicity. Nothing is happening because of this. This is only making them, somehow more and more popular for some reason. So I have started to, I've decided that, I'm not going to make these people, because these people are just the catalyst of something which is bigger. So my fight is not with these people. My fight is with the ideologies of these people itself. So I am against, BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, all together, because they have been ruining it for a very long. They have been exploiting these things for a very long time. So from Babri Masjid to everything you see now, there has been an involvement of each and every party. Rajiv Gandhi was involved, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee is involved, Advani. Then Modi has arrived. It is not that somehow somebody has just arrived and did something. There has been a long trade, and my fight is to see this long trade. I have to break this thing that that is this propagation of this inhuman ideology. I really respect people with different ideologies, but when it is harmful to people, it doesn't make sense. How can one be so inhuman that they do not think twice before killing, or before beating up, or before raping, or before dehumanizing other human beings? I just don't understand it.
Yeah. So do you think art is, I mean, this is one of my classic questions, that is art always connected to politics, or is art connected to politics? Always would be like making it much more stricter. But in your mind, what is the purpose of your art then, other than having this dialogue or storytelling, or having an underlying message?
I think art, if we see from back from the Assyrian monoglyphs, it was all propaganda. From Egyptian art, it was all propaganda. Telling how great your pharaoh is, so that you should be a better subject. So art has always been used for some kind of propaganda. And also in the same lines, there has been graffiti since the Roman Empire times. So there were these local people who were doing graffiti on, the word has derived from that times. They would draw or write shameful things, sometimes very 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 mean things on the walls of the nobles, or the other people, the important people. So this art has played its role in both the sides, for the propaganda and against it. So be it those pharaohs, or Assyrian monoglyphs, or even word wars, downfall of czars, civil right movement, and up till now, art has been playing part in both. And I think it's upon people which side they are on. So it depends on the individual. It has been like this for a very long time. I think this is the nature of art. It can go like science. It can go with the evil, it can go with the good. Same is with the art. It is totally on the individual, which side they want to take, and if they are taking it consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah, with social media, it has become like a very double-edged sword to a very high degree. That yeah. So actually, on that note, I wanted to ask you one very interesting question, which I've been trying to just articulate myself. In fact, is that with the rise of social media, with rise of these sort of so-called democratic mediums like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, you have, like I call it, like you have a mic and you can talk, right? Previously, maybe the mics were with few people, few individuals, few elites. Now the mic is almost with everyone, and everyone is trying to tell a story. Everyone is trying to have their own agenda. So in that, obviously, there's a lot of information asymmetry as well.
Yeah.
So at what point in time a person, according to you, is ready to talk or ready to? I mean, is there something which you hold as, जैसे रियाज में होता है, right? उधर गुरु होते थे तो गुरु used to say like, हाँ, 30-40 years के बाद you can step on the stage and perform with me. There is no guardrail here. There is no. It's completely democratic.
Yeah.
So 2 points here. One is, what according to you is a right threshold for you to start saying? How much of research, how much of rebel, how much of pain, how much of support of the medium itself you have got that you start expressing? So that's one. And the second is, like, how do you draw lines to actually say what you want to say, and not really go over it, because then you're actually there's also misinformation happening. So any thoughts around that?
I think it's like the kind of world we are living in. As I said, that dissent has been happening for a very long time. Criticizing establishment has been happening for a very long time. A lot of art movements, design movements have emerged because of those. But what we have now is this real problem of information asymmetry and a lot of information. Actually, there is a lot of information from here and there, from sources which have no sources, from sources which has many sub sources. So there is a lot of misinterpretation, reinterpretation. And so the problem is, most of us, even I, fall prey into some of the misinformations. I do not understand, and it takes me time that okay, I have done something wrong, or I've read something wrong, understood something wrong. So I think at today's time it is also important, because also there is this thing that scholarly work has been written by certain people, or certain class of people, caste of people, or certain group of people. So there is no actual you cannot properly rely on those also. So I think we are living in a time where this academic information and the primary information together are very important. So if a scholar is writing, now I do not know how other people might think it, but I generally work around things that I understand. So I do not try to cater to things which I myself do not understand. So when I try to try to understand them, I try to talk to people who are directly related to certain incident, or certain subject that I'm talking about, and read the words of the people who have written about it scholarly, and try to do certain match the columns and other things, that what try to make sense of things. Because
can you give an example of any artwork that you did, so that it will just help us visualize? Any particular artwork, maybe Savitri Bai के ऊपर कुछ भी रहेगा तो.
Actually, even on Savitri Mai, like Savitri Mai's, I'll talk about this Mahar artwork, because
Yeah.
I've made mostly portraits of Savitri Mai. So maybe there might not be many threads to connect to, but I did this illustration on Mahar Satyagraha, where Ambedkar is drinking water, and there are happy people, around on the bank of the Chaudhar Lake. So for making that, there is no photograph of that incident, but there are a lot of visual imagery that has been created at very local level. Somebody has made a random well, and somebody is looking like Ambedkar, like how I do, making blue thing common. So a lot of people does that. So so that okay, this person looks like an Ambedkar and he's drinking water, and there is this people are. And then when I started to read about it, so there are these different things. So but this is the aesthetics are by people. They have made the joyous expression which I would not have imagined. I was imagining, oh, everybody's like agitated, we are drinking water and everything. But no, it was not the case, because how those people documented at that point of time, there is this there are these smiles, there is this happiness when Baba Sahib is drinking the water. So and when I read the text about it, the text is very it's talking about how a lot of women are there are a lot of men, and everybody is going there, but in these visual imagery the women are missing. So there is this lot of contradiction in both the things. So the text is very agitated, it is saying as if everybody is going to hurt people, or if somebody would have come on their way, they would have killed them or everything, although the story was something else. But the way these people who were there expressed it in poetry or in visual imagery was, very joyous and not that angry as it was, written by the scholars. So there was this, but in the visual imagery there were no women. In the scholarly work there was the presence of a lot of women. So, for my final artwork had to include a lot of women, because, that is dictated by, that is the, main point of the scholarly writing, that it is documenting. But the emotions I'm not going to pick from the scholars. The emotions I'm going to pick from the poets, or from the artists who were them, either present then or were living at that point of time, so that, they could have understood that emotion much more better than myself. So this is how sometimes, I have to, mix things and, make things work. Even for Ravidas, I've done a lot of work around Ravidas, where, I'm trying to, make him, somehow, relatable to me, to the kind of scholarly work, because Ravidas has been, shown in the films or whatever visual imagery what was available of him. He was like some very, flamboyant person, and, he was very much like Guru Nanak, that, he's very, which is devoid of their attributes, I think, because Guru Nanak has been traveling so much and he's very, chubby and everything. It is not possible. He must be a very, hard, rugged man. He's been traveling so long, for so much. Similar with Ravidas, how he is seen as like, he's a very nice gentleman, wearing silk robes and everything. No, he was this guy who is not even, taking some, dakshina from people. He still is, making shoes and selling them, even though he has a great following. So, those kind of things, you pick some certain things from the academia, you pick certain things from the emotions of people, and then you mix it up, and then what comes is really interesting. Sometimes I play with Ambedkar suits. It's my, personal trip. So I sometimes make him wear these really fashionable suits, because I studied fashion design. So sometimes, that fashion illustrator comes inside me. Sometimes I make, those cuffs which are very 2014 or 2017. Nobody, see that with that direction, but then I play with that kind of imagery at times. Sometimes I feel like, giving, telling lies through my work, but I can do it in small bits. So if some historian will see that, they will say, no, this suit never, this kind of silhouette was never there, in his time. And I know it, because I am trying to, bring him to more modern times, make him more relevant, make him more maybe near me, so that, yeah.
Beautiful. Because I have a side project apart from AudioGAN, which is called Legends of India. The website is legendsofindia.shop. We have not officially launched it. I mean, it's there, it's work in progress. But I've been doing some research for, there are like these small collectible cards of, say, like 12 famous scientists of India, 12 classical vocalists, 12 freedom fighters. And while doing research, you land up in so many contradictions, you land up in so much confusion. I mean, like, I think a month ago I was reading about, again, like just going through Mahatma Gandhi's Wikipedia page, and it said, okay, father of the nation, officially not, but popularly known. I think there's some glitch there, right? And it was quite confusing. Matlab, they're changing narratives every time, and you don't have a reliable source unless you become a historian and go deep into
sometimes
archives.
historians also lie, no? Though these days historians are lying openly, so nobody can, there is no trust left in this world on anything.
Cool. All right. I think I'm sort of done with my questions related to the kind of work that you have been doing and the kind of stuff that you've been documenting. Just one last sort of bonus question, because I was going through a couple of articles and you spoke about, I was going to ask you about Mahat Satyagraha, which you already spoke about, but can you tell us a bit about Kausalya Vaisantri, or any of the legends or any of the great people whom are not in the traditional media? Just, I mean, like, AudioGAN could be just a small, whoever listens to it can know a few people.
Kausalya Vaisantri is undoubtedly, one of those forgotten people whose work and words were not really, reached people, as many people as they could have or should have. She was the first Dalit woman writer who wrote her biography in Hindi. She was basically from Maharashtra, but she chose to write it in Hindi. And it was my father who actually asked me to read her book called Dora Bishap. So when I read her work, like her biography, it's, her whole life, the kind of life she has had, I've never imagined, I've never, there were a lot of lies I've built around me, about what kind of a person I am, or what kind of a, man I am, or, what kind of a human I am. But this book broke all those things slowly and steadily. She talks about her childhood, and how she wants to study, her joys. So it has always been, about his joys. It has always been history. It has not been, her story. So this was kind of her story, which I had never imagined. So somehow, I was trying to relate to the story of my mother or my grandmother, because there were so many, similarities and overlappings which I never cared to even think about, or even consider. Now she is, talking about how her own parents, can be hindrance in her own, evolution, or things,
Upbringing.
how she's, her upbringing, her marriage, how, her husband, who could be best of the human beings ideologically, or, must be a follower of some really great people, and would, perform, or would, behave in a certain way, which he shouldn't be, inside the house. How her sons and, her children treats her, as a mother and as a Dalit mother. And then how, this lady still, goes out to make a career out of herself. She's a staunch Ambedkarite, going in the protests, writing books, and translating important Marathi literature into Hindi. So she has been through a lot of pain, and the stories were something that I had never, read, but I have known about them. I was not, I knew that, when I was reading about her upbringing, I knew that, many times my mother has, said certain things, which is around it. And to be true, the gender behavior in Dalit societies is very different from the mainstream. So, there are a lot of things which are, at sometimes very extreme. So be it, the positive side, or be it the negative side. Women in most of the Dalit families have more say in economical things, because they have been working for a very long time. So they have been, because there was not much money in their houses from grandmothers or great grandmothers, they have been working. So they have a very good say in financial matters. But there are certain evils of these societies which, which are horrific. And sometimes I was feeling that I might have been driven towards those evil if I have not read her work. So it is important, not just, and since, because it is the story of very, very common people. Most of the stories that we hear, or see in the movies, or in Premchand's novels, or these things have a very, surface level of society that has been molded. So there is this sanskari baap, there is this sanskari ma, there is this, thodi si unsanskari beti, or thoda sa unsanskari. But in Dalit literature, there are a lot of gray areas. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of layers of, there are layers of goodness, there are layers of bad things. And, they celebrate this, this confused personality that there is. So how she writes about herself and about her family, portrays that confusion, and it opens up the society that we are living in. So a lot of people I have, even if they do not belong to my community, if I've, who have recommended this book, have really got a lot of insights from their own community, because, there are some things which are very, very common. She's talking about the harshest of the realities which people are afraid to talk about. The harshest of the things that, a woman should not say about her man, or a woman or a mother should not say about her children. So those kind of things she's bringing out, and, she's still, this woman that, that is still making her career and everything. So she's not a abla nari, who has been through a lot. She has been through a lot, she has emerged from it, and, she's still going through a lot, and she's still evolving and emerging. It's a very powerful story. I do not think that if, a man could suffer that kind of a life, and, have become something, that she has made of herself. It's very, I think, the kind of hardship that she has gone through, and what kind of work she has produced even after going through that, and how unapologetically, she has expressed it in words is just very powerful, very powerful.
Cool. Yeah, it's quite inspiring. In fact, I remembered one. I'm sort of a big Puladesh Pandey fan. And in one of his interviews, he said and he said in Marathi, I'll just try and do it in Hindi as much as I can. But अगर किसी लड़की को साइकिल पे जोर जोर से जाते वक्त देखो तो I wish to just tell her कि hey, this freedom that you're enjoying right now or you're experiencing right now, उसके लिए कभी तो सावित्रीबाई फुले ने पत्थर खाए हैं, right? And so that was my like just entry point, I would say, to know that there is a different world out there, because obviously I heard this many years ago, but it still remembers. Yeah,
there are these examples of there are these reminders for us that women are better than men. So these people have outdone themselves, and we should be ashamed of the society that we have made.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, that's not a very happy note, but it was just fun talking to you. Got to learn a lot, and I mean, we can do multiple episodes on such a giant figure like Ambedkar, and I mean, definitely this is just a small snippet of what we could do in this time. So once again, thanks Siddhesh for giving your time. It was real great having you on the show.
Thanks, Kedar. Thanks. Pleasure is mine.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to check our other interesting podcast on IVM Network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or any of your favorite podcasting apps. To stay tuned, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at IVM Podcast. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at AudioGyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra-marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunya One, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nuttigritties. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. Appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week. Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks guys, without you this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.